Barbirolli was in his 40s before he landed up in Manchester. Before that, he'd held very big appointments indeed, including being the conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. He joined them in Toscanini's day, and when Toscanini left, Barbirolli had taken over. But at 43, he left what was possibly the richest of all orchestras to take on one of the oldest and at that time poorest. Since then, the Italians, the Berlin Philharmonic, Covent Garden, the BBC, they've all made offers, but nothing will persuade him so far anyway to leave the Halle. He conducts, of course, all over the world, but from a firm base in Manchester. Thus, he spends 6 weeks twice a year in Houston, Texas, where he's the principal conductor of their symphony orchestra. Last year, he drove his Houston players through a tremendous tour and in one blow translated them into one of the leading orchestras of America. The Texans are vividly aware of what he's done for Houston and don't hesitate to say so.
I think he gets as much out of the symphony as any man possibly can. In fact, I'm quite sure there's no greater conductor in the world today than Sir John Barbirolli.
He's meant a great deal to Houston. We're very fortunate to have him. The orchestra has blossomed under his leadership.
They say much the same thing in Manchester.
Quite terrific sometimes. And I do remember once conducting the Great C Major by Schubert, which is a rather long symphony, it rambles, and he seemed to keep the coherence, you know, keep the orchestra together, you know. Normally, some conductors might let it sort of ramble on.
But a fantastic number of people travel quite a distance to come into the Halle for the concerts. And the Halle societies on the outskirts of Manchester, places like Marple and so on, they're quite strong and have a quite wide membership.
I can imagine if I was in the orchestra, I could be, I don't know how to describe it, taken away and worked up, you know, into the feeling that Barbirolli seems to instill into them.
I think that he is, without any doubt at all, the greatest conductor in England today, and one of a handful of the finest conductors in the world.
Well, Sir John is tops. He has done wonders for this orchestra, and being a little bit of a musician myself, I can appreciate his decisive beat, which gives the musicians everything that they want, so they can read him exactly like it's supposed to be read.
Barbirolli himself is a Londoner, born and bred, born in 1899 to be exact. He spent his childhood in Drury Lane. His father and grandfather had come together to London from a village near Venice. They were both orchestral musicians. And when he was a little boy, John Barbirolli used to listen to them, they were both violinists, playing in the orchestras of the Alhambra, the Hippodrome, and the old Queen's Hotel. Manchester again. And here the normal routine is that Lady Barbirolli picks her husband up after the concert and they drive to their home, which is in Salford.
That's fine.
If his wife is away, he cooks for himself. She quite often is, being professionally Evelyn Rothwell, the oboe player. They've been married for 25 years.
They took it jolly well too, actually. Mind you, probably a lot of them really do like you, and the doctors mostly do.
I bet it is.
Sorry, now you say one or two.
One. Well, Sir Robert was there.
Nice to be Billy.
Alone, altogether, this is Barbirolli's only meal of the day. This regimen is absolute. One meal a day at midnight. Breakfast, lunch, dinner don't exist. He takes an occasional cup of coffee, perhaps even a sandwich, but only the one meal. Another curious thing, about 3 hours sleep is apparently all he needs. Anyway, that's all he takes. 4 hours sleep is a long night and exceptional. The remainder of the hours of darkness are taken up entirely with what seems from the outside, and probably is, a quite obsessive reading and marking of scores. What he says is that he must have any work, note by note, learnt and in his head before he brings it to an orchestra if he's to get them to play it as he has heard it. Early in his life, he was persuaded to conduct Elgar II at short notice. He knew it as a player, but not as a conductor. And he had to work, so he told us, without sleep for 48 hours flat to get it ready. He just made it. He started as a cellist. By the time he was 15, with a whole clutch of scholarships and prizes behind him, he was earning a living with his cello in theatres, cinemas, restaurants, music halls, and at the same time giving solo recitals and being described as a future Pablo Casals. He stopped playing the cello seriously when he began conducting at the age of 25. We filmed one of his rare appearances as a cellist in Westminster Abbey, where he was rehearsing a concert with the King's Lynn Quartet. Also filmed Barbirolli talking to Charles Reed, an old friend, 20 years standing, and the music critic of The Spectator. They were on to when exactly Barbirolli had first started as a conductor.